I need to tell you about something that happened in the Appalachian Mountains in 1980. Something that made the federal government erase a campground from every map, satellite image, and official record like it never existed. And I'm not talking about some conspiracy theory bullshit. I'm talking about documented evidence, survivor testimonies, and a cover-up so thorough that most people who worked there can't even legally talk about it. My name is irrelevant, but what matters is that I spent 15 years as a park ranger in the Appalachian region. I've seen things in those mountains that would make most people never want to set foot in the woods again. But nothing, and I mean nothing, compares to what I discovered about Hemlock Hollow Campground. You won't find Hemlock Hollow on any map today. Try searching for it. Go ahead. You'll find nothing. But in 1980, it was a fully operational campground in eastern Kentucky, nestled in a valley so remote that you needed a four-wheel drive just to reach the access road. It had been open since 1964, serving an average of 200 campers per summer season. Families went there. Boy Scout troops, college kids looking for a quiet place to party away from civilization. Then something happened over 1 week in August 1980. Something so disturbing that within 6 months, every building was demolished, every road leading there was barricaded, and the entire area was marked as a protected ecological zone with no public access. Ever, the official story, there isn't one. That's the first red flag. When the government scrubs something this thoroughly, when they burn records and relocate witnesses and make damn sure nobody can even prove a place existed, you know something went catastrophically wrong. I found out about Hemlock Hollow by accident in 2003. I was cataloging old incident reports in a storage facility that was being cleared out, and I found a water-damaged box that should have been destroyed decades ago. Inside were photocopies of reports, witness statements, and photographs that made my hands shake so badly I nearly dropped them. What I'm about to tell you is pieced together from those documents, from conversations with people who were there, and from my own investigation into what remains of that site. Some of this will sound impossible, some of it will sound like fiction, but I've verified every detail I could, and the things I couldn't verify are even more disturbing than the things I could. Let me start with the basics, because you need to understand what Hemlock Hollow was before you can understand what it became. The campground sat in a valley carved by glaciers thousands of years ago. Dense forest surrounded it on all sides, primarily hemlock trees that grew so thick the forest floor existed in permanent twilight. The Cherokee who originally inhabited that region had a name for the valley that roughly translated to "where the old ones sleep." They never built permanent structures there. They never hunted there. White settlers who arrived in the 1800s reported that their horses refused to enter the valley, and several early homesteaders abandoned their claims after a single winter. Though records don't specify why, the land was purchased by the federal government in 1963 as part of a larger conservation effort. Some bureaucrat in Washington decided it would make a perfect campground for the growing outdoor recreation movement. They cleared trees, built facilities, constructed a small ranger station, and opened it to the public in summer 1964. For 16 years, it operated normally. Sure, there were occasional odd reports. Campers complained about feeling watched. People reported hearing voices in languages they couldn't identify. A few folks claimed their compasses didn't work properly in certain areas, but these things happen in remote wilderness areas. The human brain isn't wired for that level of isolation and darkness. It plays tricks, it invents threats, standard stuff. The ranger assigned to Hemlock Hollow from 1975 to 1980 was a man named Dale Finnegan. Dale was a veteran, served 2 tours in Vietnam, and was about as level-headed and unflappable as they come. I found his personal journal in that box, and his entries from the first 5 years are exactly what you'd expect. Weather reports, wildlife observations, minor incidents with drunk campers, nothing unusual. Then the entries from summer 1980 start, and Dale's tone changes completely. June 3rd, 1980. Found another one of those stone arrangements today, about 50 yards west of Campsite 7. Perfect circle, maybe 6 feet in diameter, stones placed with deliberate precision. Same as the 3 I found last month. Can't be natural. Ask the campers in 7 if they built it. They seemed genuinely confused. Wife actually got upset. said I was accusing them of vandalism. I apologized and dropped it. But someone is building these things. They're appearing faster than I can document them. June 18, 1980. The Henderson family left early, third group this week, to cut their stay short. Mr. Henderson wouldn't give me a straight answer, just kept saying his kids weren't sleeping well. When I pressed him, he finally admitted that his youngest daughter, maybe 5 years old, kept talking about the tall man who watches from the trees. Said she'd wake up screaming about him every night. Henderson seemed embarrassed, like he was worried I'd think his kid was crazy. I told him it was probably just nightmares from being in an unfamiliar place. But here's the thing that bothers me. That's the fourth family this season who mentioned their children seeing a tall figure in the woods. Always described the same way. Impossibly tall, completely still. Just watching. June 29, 1980. I don't know what the hell is happening here. Last night I was doing my evening rounds and I heard singing. Not like campfire singing, this was something else. Multiple voices harmonizing in a way that made my teeth hurt. Coming from deep in the forest, north side of the valley. I grabbed my flashlight and my pistol and went to investigate. The singing stopped the moment I entered the tree line. Complete silence. Not even insects. I called out, identified myself as a ranger, told whoever was out there they needed to return to their campsite. Nothing. Just that oppressive silence. I swept the area with my light and found nothing. No people. No evidence anyone had been there. But when I turned to head back, I could have sworn I saw movement in my peripheral vision, something large shifting between the trees. When I pointed my light at it, there was nothing there. July 4, 1980. Quietest Independence Day I've ever seen at a campground. We have maybe 15 people here. Should have at least 100. Word is spreading that something's wrong with this place. I called my supervisor to report the unusual drop in visitors. He seemed irritated, like I was complaining about having an easy assignment. Asked if I wanted to request a transfer. I said no. I don't know why I said no. Truth is, I should want to leave. But there's something happening here, something I need to understand. Does that make me stupid or just stubborn? July 19, 1980. Talked to Sarah Chen today, one of the seasonal workers. She's been having dreams, same dream every night for the past week. She's standing in the middle of the campground at night and every campsite is occupied, but the people in the tents aren't people. She can see their shapes through the tent walls and the proportions are all wrong, too tall, limbs that bend at too many angles, and they're all silent, completely motionless, like they're waiting for something. She asked me if I thought she should see a doctor. I told her it was probably just stress. But I'm having similar dreams. I haven't written about them because putting them on paper makes them feel more real. I wake up every morning feeling like I barely slept. Like something kept me up all night, even though I don't remember waking. This is where Dale's journal entries become more erratic. His handwriting gets messier. The dates start skipping days. July 27, 1980. Found Michael Reese wandering near the access road at 3 a.m. He's one of the campers who checked in 2 days ago with his wife. He was barefoot, wearing only his underwear, completely non-responsive. I had to physically guide him back to his campsite. His wife was frantic, said she woke up and he was gone. Michael came around after about 20 minutes, but he had no memory of leaving his tent. No memory of walking half a mile down the road. He kept asking me why his feet hurt. They were torn up, bloody, like he'd been running through the forest. But he swears he doesn't remember any of it. I told them they should probably pack up and leave. They did, first thing in the morning. Michael wouldn't even look at the forest, kept his eyes down the whole time they were packing. August 1st, 1980. I'm not crazy. I know what I saw. It was just after sunset, still some light in the sky. I was checking the northern trail when I saw it. A figure standing between two massive hemlock trees about 40 yards away. It was tall, too tall, had to be at least 8 or 9 feet. Human-shaped but wrong. The proportions were off in a way that my brain couldn't quite process. Long arms, too long, and it was completely motionless. Not breathing, not swaying, just standing there watching me. I called out, no response. I started walking toward it, and it stepped behind one of the trees. Just a simple sidestep, and it was out of sight. When I reached that spot, there was nothing. No footprints, no broken branches, nothing. But I know what I fucking saw. August 3rd, 1980. The Carmichael group is missing. That entry, 3 words. That's when everything fell apart. The Carmichael group consisted of 6 people. Robert and Linda Carmichael, both in their early 30s. Their 2 children, Emma, age 8, and Joshua, age 5. And Linda's parents, George and Patricia Morrison, both in their 60s. They had checked into campsite 12 on August 1st, planning to stay for a week. According to Dale's more detailed report, which I found clipped to his journal entry, he had checked on them the evening of August 2nd. Everything seemed normal. The family was cooking dinner, kids were playing, everyone was in good spirits. The next morning, another camper reported that campsite 12 appeared abandoned. Dale went to investigate and found all of their belongings still there. Tents were still set up. Food was still out, though animals had gotten into it. Car was still parked in the designated spot, keys sitting on the driver's seat. But no people. Dale immediately initiated a search. He called in additional rangers from neighboring parks. They searched for 2 days, covering every inch of the surrounding forest. They found nothing. No tracks, no signs of struggle, no clothing, no bodies. 6 people had simply vanished. Then on August 5th, they found Emma. She was sitting in the middle of campsite 12, right where the tent had been. The tent had been taken down during the search, but there she was, sitting cross-legged in the dirt, staring straight ahead. Completely catatonic. Dale's report describes her condition. Subject appears physically unharmed, but is non-responsive to verbal or physical stimuli. Eyes are open but unfocused. When approached, she did not react. When I touched her shoulder, she felt cold despite the ambient temperature being approximately 78 degrees. We wrapped her in blankets and transported her to the ranger station. She has not spoken or changed position in 3 hours. A helicopter evacuated Emma to a hospital in Lexington. The search for the other 5 family members continued for another week. They brought in search and rescue teams from 3 states. They used dogs, helicopters, thermal imaging. They drained a small pond on the north side of the valley. They found absolutely nothing. Emma remained catatonic for 6 days. Then on August 11th, she woke up screaming. The nurse who was with her when it happened reported that Emma sat bolt upright in bed, eyes wide, and screamed for almost a minute straight. When she finally stopped, she looked at the nurse and said, "They took them under. They took them all under, and now they're changed." Then Emma started talking, and what she said was documented by a psychiatrist who happened to be in the hospital. I found a copy of his notes in that box, and reading them made me understand why this whole thing got buried. According to Emma, on the night of August 2nd, she woke up because she heard singing. The same singing Dale had described in his journal. She looked out of the tent and saw lights moving through the forest. Not flashlights, pale lights that moved on their own, weaving between the trees like they were alive. She said the lights came closer, and she could see that they weren't lights at all. They were people, or things shaped like people. Tall and thin, moving in ways that didn't look natural. She said they were singing in words she'd never heard before, and the sound made her feel like she was falling even though she was lying down. Emma said she tried to wake her parents, but they wouldn't wake up. Nobody would wake up. It was like everyone was frozen. Then the figures entered the campsite. Emma said they were so tall they had to bend down to fit under the trees. She said their faces were wrong, not like monster faces, just wrong in a way she couldn't describe, like human faces that had been stretched and rearranged. The figures went to each tent and did something. Emma couldn't see exactly what, but she heard her parents and grandparents and brother making sounds. Not screaming. She said they sounded happy, like they were laughing and talking to old friends. Then the figures led everyone out of the tents and into the forest. Emma said her family went willingly, smiling, holding hands with these things. She tried to follow, but one of the figures turned and looked at her, and she felt something push her backwards, back into her tent. She said it felt like invisible hands holding her down. The last thing she remembered was watching her family walk into the trees, the pale light following them, the singing getting quieter and quieter until everything went silent. The psychiatrist noted that Emma showed no signs of delusion or confabulation. She was genuinely describing what she believed she had experienced. He recommended keeping her for observation, but noted that she was otherwise healthy and coherent. Now here's where things get even stranger. While Emma was in the hospital, more incidents occurred at Hemlock Hollow. August 6th, Dale's journal. 2 more groups left today without checking out. Just packed up and drove away like something was chasing them. I found a note left in campsite 4. All it said was, "We heard them calling our names. We're not staying to find out what happens if we answer." I'm one of 3 rangers here now, and we're all seeing things, hearing things. Last night, Jenkins swears he saw someone standing outside the ranger station window. When he went outside to check, there were handprints on the glass, but the fingers were too long. The prints measured nearly 14 inches from palm to fingertip. Human hands don't look like that. August 8th, headquarters called. They're shutting us down, not temporarily, permanently. They're sending a team to evacuate any remaining campers and secure the site. They wouldn't explain why, wouldn't answer my questions, just told me to document everything and prepare for full closure. There are still 12 people here, families who either haven't heard about the disappearances or don't care. I told them all they need to leave. Most of them looked relieved. August 10th. The team arrived. They're not Park Service. They're not Forest Service. I don't know what agency they're from, but they're armed and they're treating this like a biohazard situation. They've established a perimeter and they're not letting anyone in or out without clearance. They interviewed me for 4 hours, asked me about everything I'd seen and heard, recorded everything. Then they told me I was being transferred effective immediately and that I was not to discuss anything about Hemlock Hollow with anyone, ever. They made me sign documents. When I asked what was really going on, the man in charge just looked at me and said, "Mr. Finnegan, there are places in these mountains where the world is thinner than it should be. Hemlock Hollow is one of those places, and we made a mistake building there. That's all you need to know." Dale was transferred to a ranger station in Montana. According to records I managed to find, he worked there for another 15 years before retiring. I tried to contact him for this investigation, but I found out he died in 2019. Natural causes, according to the death certificate. But a former colleague of his told me that Dale never talked about Hemlock Hollow, even to his wife. Said he had nightmares about it until the day he died. After the evacuation, things moved fast. A construction crew was brought in under heavy guard. They demolished every structure, they ripped up the roads, they planted trees. Within 3 months, you couldn't tell a campground had ever existed there. But demolishing the physical location wasn't enough. They went after the records too. Every reference to Hemlock Hollow was removed from official documents. Maps were reprinted without it, tourist guides were updated, old brochures were collected and destroyed. They even contacted people who had camped there in previous years and asked them to destroy any photographs they had of the location. Some people complied, others refused, but those photographs have a way of disappearing anyway. You might be wondering about the Carmichael family. What happened to them? They were never found. All 5 of them are still listed as missing persons. The case is officially unsolved. Emma was placed with relatives in Ohio. I managed to track her down in 2007. She agreed to meet with me, though she was hesitant. Emma was 27 when I met her. She had built a life for herself, married, working as a teacher, seemed relatively well adjusted. But when I brought up Hemlock Hollow, I watched her entire demeanor change. "I knew someone would come asking eventually," she said. "I'm surprised it took this long." She told me that her memories of that night haven't faded. Usually childhood memories blur and shift over time. Not these. She said she remembers every detail with perfect clarity, and that clarity feels wrong somehow. Like the memories were placed in her head rather than experienced naturally. "I tried to convince myself it was a dream," Emma said, "or that I misunderstood what I saw because I was a kid and I was scared. But I can't make myself believe that. I know what I saw. I know what took my family." I asked her if she ever tried to go back to that area. She looked at me like I'd suggested she jump off a bridge. "Why the fuck would I do that?" she said. "Those things are still there. They're always there, and they're waiting for people stupid enough to go looking for them." Emma told me something else, something that still bothers me. She said that sometimes, late at night, she hears singing, the same singing from that night. It's distant and faint, but it's there. And when she hears it, she feels an urge to go outside, to walk into the nearest wooded area and keep walking until she finds where the singing is coming from. "It's like they're calling me," she said, "reminding me that they let me go, but I'm not free. Not really. I think they can take me back whenever they want. I think the only reason they haven't is because it amuses them to let me live with this." I asked Emma if she'd be willing to go on record with her story. She refused immediately. "You think the government covered this up because they were embarrassed," she said. "They covered it up because they're scared, because there's nothing they can do about it. You can't fight something like that with guns or laws or fences. The best they can do is keep people away and hope it stays contained to that valley. If you start telling people about this, if you draw attention to it, you might wake something up that's better left sleeping." I left that meeting feeling more confused than when I arrived. Emma was clearly traumatized, but she was also completely sincere. She wasn't lying or exaggerating. She believed every word she was saying. So I decided to break the rules. I decided to visit the site myself. Getting to the former location of Hemlock Hollow isn't easy. The access roads have been barricaded for decades. The area is marked as protected wilderness with no public access. There are signs warning of hazardous conditions, unstable terrain, protected wildlife habitats. All bullshit, of course. The real message is, stay the fuck out. But I'm a ranger. I know how to navigate restricted areas. I know how to avoid official attention. In October 2008, I hiked into that valley. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not peaceful silence, oppressive silence. The kind that makes your ears ring. There were no birds, no insects, no wind, just nothing. The second thing I noticed was that my equipment didn't work properly. My GPS kept showing my location as somewhere 5 miles north. My compass spun lazily, never settling on a direction. My radio produced only static. The trees were wrong too. Remember, this place was supposed to be replanted in 1980. That was 28 years before my visit. But the hemlocks I saw were ancient. 100-year-old giants at minimum. The forest floor was covered in decades' worth of fallen needles, creating a thick carpet that muffled every sound. I found the clearing where the campground had been. You could still see subtle indications, slight depressions where buildings had stood, areas where the vegetation was slightly different, but mostly it looked like pristine old-growth forest. Then I found the stone circles. They were exactly as Dale had described them, perfect circles of stones, each about 6 feet in diameter, arranged in deliberate patterns. But there weren't just a few. There were dozens of them, scattered throughout the forest. Some were arranged in larger patterns, circles within circles. From the ground, they just looked random. But I climbed a ridge to get a higher perspective, and that's when I saw the design. The circles formed symbols. Massive symbols that covered acres of forest floor. I couldn't read them, couldn't understand their meaning, but they were clearly intentional, clearly designed, and they definitely weren't there before 1980 because the photographs I'd seen showed those areas as having been clear. I was documenting this with my camera when I heard the singing. I can't describe it adequately. It wasn't beautiful, but it wasn't ugly either. It was otherworldly. Harmonies that shouldn't work together but somehow did. Words in a language that predated language. It came from deeper in the valley, from the north where the forest became truly dark. Every instinct I had screamed at me to leave, to run, to get the fuck out of that valley and never come back. But I'm a stubborn asshole and I'd come this far. I wanted to see. I moved toward the singing and the forest seemed to change around me. The trees grew closer together. The darkness deepened. The temperature dropped. I could see my breath despite it being a mild October day. Then I saw the lights, pale, luminous shapes moving between the trees. Just like Emma had described. I stopped walking. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped my flashlight. The lights moved closer, weaving through the trees in patterns that made my eyes hurt to follow. And behind the lights, I could see shapes, tall shapes, moving with that same unnatural grace. The singing grew louder, and I felt something I've never felt before or since. It wasn't fear exactly. It was recognition, like something in my DNA remembered this sound, remembered these things, from a time before humans were fully human, before we climbed down from the trees and stood upright, an ancestral memory of something that hunted us in the darkness, One of the shapes moved closer, close enough that I could almost see details. Almost. It was like my eyes couldn't quite focus on it. The shape kept shifting, like it existed in more dimensions than my brain could process. Then it spoke. Not in English, not in any language I recognized, but somehow I understood the meaning. "You are not called. Return." I ran. I'm not proud of it, but I ran like a terrified animal. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs gave out. I ran until I was out of that valley and back into normal forest where birds sang and my equipment worked properly. I made it back to my truck and drove for 6 hours straight. Didn't stop, didn't look back, didn't process what I'd experienced until I was safely back in my apartment with every light turned on. I checked my camera. Every photograph I'd taken in that valley was corrupted. Just grey static. The only image that survived was one I'd taken before entering the valley, showing the warning signs. For weeks afterward, I heard the singing in my dreams. I'd wake up with the urge to drive back there, to walk into that forest and find out what would happen if I stayed. The urge eventually faded, but it never fully went away. Now let's talk about what I think happened, because this is important. This isn't just a spooky story. There are lessons here about human arrogance and the dangers of assuming we understand the world we live in. The Appalachian Mountains are old. Not just old in human terms, but old in geological terms. They're some of the oldest mountains on Earth, formed nearly 500 million years ago. They've been worn down by time and weather into the rolling forested peaks we see today. But that age means something. It means these mountains have seen things we can't imagine. They existed long before humans. They'll exist long after we're gone. Indigenous peoples who lived in these mountains had stories. Every tribe, every culture that called these peaks home had legends about places you don't go. Valleys where people disappear, forests where the normal rules don't apply. They weren't superstitious idiots. They were people who had lived in these mountains for thousands of years and had learned through hard experience that some areas are dangerous in ways that defy rational explanation. White settlers dismissed these warnings. We always do. We see indigenous knowledge as primitive folklore rather than accumulated wisdom. We assume that our modern understanding of the world is complete, that if something can't be explained by current science, then it must not be real. But here's the thing about science. It's a process, not a destination. Our understanding of reality is constantly evolving. 100 years ago, we didn't understand quantum mechanics. 200 years ago, we didn't know about germs. 500 years ago, we thought the Earth was the center of the universe. What if there are phenomena we still don't understand? What if there are forms of existence that don't fit neatly into our current models? What if the universe is stranger and more complex than we're willing to admit? I'm not saying I know what those things in Hemlock Hollow were. I'm not claiming they were aliens or demons or dimensional beings or whatever. I'm saying I don't know, and that not knowing is okay. What's not okay is dismissing the evidence because it doesn't fit our worldview. Let's look at the facts. Multiple credible witnesses reported similar phenomena over several months. People disappeared under circumstances that conventional explanations can't account for. The federal government took extreme measures to erase this location from public knowledge. I personally experienced things in that valley that shouldn't be possible according to our understanding of reality. You can choose to believe that everyone involved was crazy or lying. That's your right. But ask yourself, is it more likely that dozens of people independently invented the same elaborate delusions? Or is it more likely that something happened in that valley that we simply don't understand? There's a concept in philosophy called the God of the Gaps argument. The idea that people attribute anything they don't understand to divine intervention. It's used as a criticism, suggesting that as science explains more of the world, the gaps where God can hide grow smaller. But what if the reverse is also true? What if our insistence on explaining everything through current scientific models creates gaps in our understanding? What if by dismissing anything that doesn't fit the model, we're blinding ourselves to real phenomena that deserve serious investigation? The Hemlock Hollow incident should have been studied. Those phenomena should have been documented and analyzed by teams of scientists from multiple disciplines. Instead, they were buried because they were inconvenient. because they threatened the comfortable narrative that we understand and control our environment. This happens more often than you might think. There are dozens of locations around the world that are off-limits for reasons that don't make sense. Areas where equipment malfunctions, where people report similar anomalous experiences, where the official explanations don't match the evidence. The government's response to Hemlock Hollow tells you everything you need to know. They didn't study it. They didn't try to understand it. They just buried it and hoped it would go away. That's not the response of an organization confident in its understanding of the situation. That's the response of an organization that's scared and doesn't want to admit it. And you know what? Maybe they're right to be scared. Maybe some things are better left alone. But that doesn't mean we should pretend they don't exist. Emma was right about one thing: whatever is in that valley is still there. Closing the campground didn't make it go away. Erasing it from maps didn't neutralize the threat. It just kept people from stumbling into danger accidentally. But here's what worries me. That valley isn't unique. The Appalachian Mountains are vast, covering over 170,000 square miles across 13 states. There are thousands of remote valleys and hollows. How many of them are like Hemlock Hollow? How many of them have similar phenomena that we simply haven't documented yet? I've talked to other rangers over the years, always carefully, always off the record. They have stories, strange disappearances that don't get investigated thoroughly, areas where they won't go alone, phenomena that they report up the chain of command and never hear about again. There's a pattern, and the pattern suggests that Hemlock Hollow wasn't an isolated incident. It was just the one that got documented before it could be properly covered up. Think about how many people go missing in national parks and forests every year. The official number is around 1,600, but that's just the cases that get reported and logged. How many people vanish without anyone knowing they were there in the first place? How many of those disappearances have mundane explanations? And how many are something else entirely? The National Park Service has a policy that I find very telling. They don't track missing persons cases in a centralized database. Each park handles its own cases independently. There's no national registry, no pattern analysis, no systematic investigation of whether certain areas have higher disappearance rates than others. Why? The official explanation is that it would be too expensive and time-consuming. The cynical explanation is that they don't want to know the answer. They don't want data that might reveal patterns they'd have to explain. After the Hemlock Hollow incident, I started paying attention to these cases differently. I started noticing things. Certain areas have clusters of disappearances. People report similar experiences before they vanish. Witnesses describe similar anomalies. But these connections are never officially acknowledged. There's a case from 1998 in the Great Smoky Mountains. A family of 4 went on a day hike on a well-marked trail. They never came back. Search and rescue found nothing. No bodies, no clothing, no equipment. 3 weeks later, the youngest child, a 6-year-old boy, was found sitting on a ranger station's front porch early in the morning. He was clean, well-fed, and wearing different clothes than when he disappeared. The boy said that the tall people had taken care of him, that they lived in a place under the mountain where it's always twilight. He said his family was still there, that they were happy, and that he was sent back because he was too young to stay. The official report says the child was found suffering from exposure and dehydration, that he was confused and disoriented, and that his statements were dismissed as trauma-induced delusions. The case remains unsolved. Sound familiar? Or what about the incident in Olympic National Forest in 2003? A group of experienced hikers reported seeing a clearing that wasn't on their maps. In the clearing were structures, like buildings, but not quite. The geometry was wrong, they said. Angles that didn't make sense. They took photographs, but when they tried to leave the clearing, they got disoriented. They walked for hours in what should have been a straight line back to the trail, but kept ending up back at the clearing. They finally escaped after one of them had the idea to walk backwards, not looking at the clearing. All of them made it out, but none of them could find that location again. Their photographs showed only dense forest, no clearing, no structures. The official response: the hikers were experienced enough to know that forests can be disorienting. They likely got turned around and their memories filled in details that weren't there. Case closed. Except I talked to one of those hikers. She's absolutely certain about what she saw. She says the thing that bothers her most is that she felt welcome in that clearing, like whatever created those structures wanted them to stay. She said if they'd been there an hour longer, she doesn't think they would have left. These stories are everywhere if you know how to look for them. They're in old incident reports, in local news archives, in conversations with rangers who've been in the field for decades. They're dismissed, explained away, or simply ignored because they don't fit our model of how reality works. But what if our model is incomplete? Let me be clear, I'm not advocating for belief in the supernatural. I'm advocating for intellectual honesty. I'm saying that when you have multiple credible reports of similar phenomena, when you have documented evidence that doesn't fit conventional explanations, the scientific response should be investigation, not dismissal. The study of ball lightning was dismissed as folklore for centuries. Meteorites were considered mythical until 1803. Rogue waves were thought to be sailors' tales until satellite data proved they were real. Science has a long history of dismissing phenomena that turned out to be genuine simply because they didn't fit existing models. How many other phenomena are we dismissing right now? How much evidence are we ignoring because it's uncomfortable or inconvenient? The Hemlock Hollow incident matters because it represents a failure of our institutions to deal honestly with the unknown. Rather than admitting uncertainty, rather than investigating properly, they chose to bury the evidence and pretend nothing happened. And what did that accomplish? It didn't make the valley safe. It didn't solve the mystery. It didn't bring back the Carmichael family or the others who disappeared. It just ensured that we'd learn nothing from the experience. This is what bothers me most about the whole thing. We had an opportunity to study something genuinely anomalous, something that could potentially expand our understanding of reality, and we wasted it because we were afraid. Afraid of what it might mean. Afraid of admitting we don't have all the answers. Afraid of the implications if there really are places in this world where the normal rules don't apply. But fear-based decision-making is always flawed. You can't solve problems by pretending they don't exist. You can't protect people by keeping them ignorant. Think about what would have happened if the government had been honest. If they'd said, something strange is happening in this valley. We don't understand it, but we're going to study it carefully while keeping people safe. Would that have caused panic? Maybe, but it also would have allowed for proper scientific investigation. It would have established protocols for dealing with similar situations. It would have acknowledged that the universe is more complex than our current models suggest, and that's okay. Instead, we got a cover-up that serves no one. The location is still dangerous. We still don't understand what happened. And we've ensured that if similar incidents occur in the future, they'll also be buried rather than studied. This is a failure of institutional courage. A failure to prioritize truth over comfort. A failure to acknowledge that sometimes the right answer is, we don't know, but we're going to find out. Now let me address the skeptics, and there should be skeptics. Skepticism is healthy. Demanding evidence is appropriate. I'm not asking you to blindly accept any of this, but I am asking you to consider the evidence honestly. We have documented reports from multiple credible witnesses. We have physical evidence in the form of the stone circles, which I photographed from a distance. We have the government's own actions, which speak louder than any testimony. We have the pattern of similar incidents in other locations. You can argue that all the witnesses were mistaken or lying. But what's their motive? Dale Finnegan had nothing to gain from fabricating his journal entries. Emma has spent her entire adult life trying to avoid attention. The other witnesses I've spoken to don't want publicity. They're not writing books or giving interviews. Most of them refuse to talk about their experiences at all. You can argue that I'm misinterpreting natural phenomena, that the lights I saw were some kind of atmospheric effect, that the singing was auditory pareidolia, that my equipment malfunctioned for mundane reasons. Okay, but that doesn't explain the disappearances. It doesn't explain the government's response. It doesn't explain why Emma remembers details from when she was 8 years old with perfect clarity 27 years later. The most common skeptical argument I hear is that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. I agree completely, but I'd argue that we have extraordinary evidence. We have documented disappearances that conventional explanations can't account for. We have similar reports from multiple independent sources. We have a government response that suggests they took this very seriously. What we don't have is an explanation that fits conventional models. And that's the point. If the evidence doesn't fit your model, you need to adjust your model, not dismiss the evidence. There's a concept in forensic investigation. When you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. We need to apply that principle here. What are the possible explanations for Hemlock Hollow? Option 1. Mass hallucination. Multiple people over several months independently hallucinated similar phenomena. Emma's entire family wandered off and died somewhere, their bodies were never found, and Emma hallucinated the entire experience. The government evacuated and demolished a campground because of these hallucinations. Possible? Technically. Probable? No. Option 2. Elaborate hoax. Someone or some group created sophisticated effects to scare people and simulate disappearances. The Carmichael family faked their own disappearances and are living under assumed names somewhere. Dale Finnegan fabricated his journal entries. I'm lying about my own experiences. The government participated in the hoax for reasons unknown. Possible? Technically. Probable? Absolutely not. Option 3. Natural phenomena we don't yet understand. Something exists in that valley that interacts with human perception and consciousness in ways current science can't explain. This phenomenon occasionally causes people to disappear through mechanisms we don't comprehend. The government knows about this, but doesn't know how to explain or control it. So they've chosen containment and secrecy. Possible? Yes. Probable? Based on the evidence, I'd say this is the most likely explanation. That's not a satisfying answer. I know that. People want concrete explanations. They want to know exactly what those things were, how they work, where they came from. I can't give you that. Nobody can. That's the point. What I can tell you is that there are places in this world that we don't fully understand. Places where the boundary between what we consider normal and what we consider impossible becomes blurred. The Appalachian Mountains, with their age and isolation and deep forests, contain several of these places. Hemlock Hollow was one of them. We stumbled into it by accident, suffered consequences we couldn't prevent, and then pretended it never happened. That's not a success story. That's a warning that we need to approach the wilderness with more humility. That indigenous knowledge and local legends often contain important truths. That the universe is under no obligation to conform to our expectations. That sometimes the right response to the unknown isn't conquest or exploitation, but respect and caution. I think about the Carmichael family often. Robert and Linda and their children and Linda's parents. They went on a camping trip, a normal, ordinary family vacation. And they encountered something that shouldn't exist, according to our understanding of reality. What happened to them? I don't know. Emma's account suggests they're still alive somewhere, somehow in a state we can't comprehend. That might be more disturbing than if they'd simply died. I think about Emma, forced to live with memories of that night, hearing singing that probably isn't really there, knowing that something took her family and let her go for reasons she'll never understand. I think about Dale Finnegan, who spent the rest of his life knowing what he'd seen but unable to talk about it, who had nightmares about it for 40 years, who died with those memories still fresh. I think about all the others who've had similar experiences in other locations. People who are dismissed as crazy or liars when they try to tell their stories. People who learn to stay silent because nobody will believe them anyway. And I think about the bureaucrats who made the decision to bury this, who decided that protecting the public from uncomfortable truths was more important than seeking understanding, who are probably still making similar decisions when new incidents occur. They're all victims of our collective refusal to acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, we don't know everything. Here's what I believe. The world is stranger than we admit. There are phenomena we can't explain with current science. Some of these phenomena are dangerous. Our response should be honest investigation combined with appropriate caution, not denial and cover-up. The Appalachian Mountains contain mysteries that predate human civilization. We built a campground in one of these mysterious places, and people paid the price for our arrogance. Then we erased the campground from maps and pretended it never happened, learning nothing. That's the real horror of Hemlock Hollow. Not the disappearances, as terrible as those were. The real horror is that we had a chance to expand human knowledge, to investigate something genuinely unknown, and we chose ignorance instead. So why am I telling you this? Why am I risking whatever consequences might come from revealing information that powerful people wanted buried? Because silence serves no one except those who benefit from ignorance. Because the people who disappeared deserve to be remembered. Because Emma deserves to have her experience acknowledged. Because other people who've encountered similar phenomena deserve to know they're not crazy. And because the next time something like this happens, and it will happen, maybe we'll respond differently. Maybe we'll choose investigation over suppression. Maybe we'll choose truth over comfort. Probably not. Institutional inertia is powerful, and admitting past mistakes is hard. But I have to try. If you're planning to camp or hike in remote areas of the Appalachian Mountains, be aware. Not paranoid, but aware. If locals tell you to avoid certain areas, listen to them. If you feel like something is wrong, trust your instincts. If you see or hear things that don't make sense, get out. Don't assume that because an area is designated as a campground or park, that it's completely safe. Don't assume that the government has investigated every square mile and deemed it acceptable for human presence. Don't assume that weird experiences can always be explained by fatigue or imagination. Most of the mountains are perfectly safe. I've spent thousands of hours in Appalachian forests without incident. But there are exceptions, pockets of strangeness, places where the normal rules don't fully apply. Hemlock Hollow was deleted from maps for a reason. Not a good reason, not a reason that serves the public interest, but a reason nonetheless. Something happened there that the government couldn't explain and didn't want to acknowledge. That valley is still there. The forest has reclaimed it, but the underlying phenomenon, whatever it is, remains. The stone circles are still being arranged by something. The singing still echoes through the trees. The tall figures still move in the darkness, and Emma still hears them calling sometimes, reminding her that she was allowed to leave, but never truly freed. That's the truth of the 1980 Appalachian Incident. Not a complete truth, because complete truth isn't possible when dealing with the unknown, but an honest truth, as far as I can determine it. The campground was deleted from maps because acknowledging its continued existence would raise questions that nobody in power wants to answer. Questions about what else we're not being told. Questions about what other dangers lurk in places we consider safe. Questions about the fundamental nature of reality itself. It's easier to erase the location than to face those questions. Easier to pretend it never happened than to admit uncertainty. Easier to maintain comfortable lies than to pursue uncomfortable truths. But easy isn't the same as right. Hemlock Hollow existed. People disappeared there under circumstances that defy conventional explanation. The government covered it up. These are facts, as verifiable as any facts can be when dealing with events that powerful institutions want buried. What you choose to believe about those facts is up to you. I've presented the evidence as clearly as I can. I've tried to be honest about what I know and what I don't know. I've acknowledged alternative explanations while explaining why I find them inadequate. The rest is your decision. Just remember, the mountains are old. They've seen things we can't imagine. They contain mysteries we're only beginning to acknowledge. And sometimes, in certain places under certain conditions, the boundary between our world and something else becomes permeable. Hemlock Hollow was one of those places. It won't be the last. Stay safe out there. Trust your instincts. And if you ever find yourself in a valley where the silence is too complete, where your equipment stops working properly, where you see lights moving between the trees and hear singing in unknown languages, leave immediately. Don't try to investigate. Don't try to understand. Just leave. Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. Some places aren't meant to be visited. Some things that were old when the mountains were young are better left undisturbed. The government learned that lesson in 1980, even if they learned it the wrong way. Hopefully, you won't have to learn it at all. But if you do encounter something inexplicable, something that shouldn't exist according to everything you know about reality, at least you'll know you're not the first. You'll know that others have experienced similar phenomena and survived. You'll know that you're not crazy, no matter what anyone tells you. And maybe, just maybe, you'll make different choices than the bureaucrats who erased Hemlock Hollow from the maps. Maybe you'll document what you experienced. Maybe you'll share your story. Maybe you'll add your evidence to the growing pile of data that suggests our understanding of reality is incomplete. That's how knowledge advances, not through institutional pronouncements or government decisions, but through individuals willing to acknowledge what they've experienced, even when it's uncomfortable or unexplainable. The truth about Hemlock Hollow is out there now. What happens with that truth is up to all of us. Just remember, they deleted it from the maps, but they couldn't delete it from reality. The valley remains. The phenomena continue. And somewhere in those ancient mountains, the tall figures still move between the trees, still sing their alien songs, still wait for the next group of humans foolish or unlucky enough to stumble into their domain. Sleep well.